Welcome back to Brando's World of X Games. I am so excited for this next guest. Put your hands together for 17-time X Games medalist, one part of X Games royalty as well. He is the one and only Travis Pastrana, TP199. Travis, thanks for calling in, brother.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. Before we got going, I was talking to you about quarantine and what a crazy time it's been for a couple of months. But I was thinking for someone like you who's kind of out in the woods and has this sort of domain, it's probably kind of good for you, man, to just kind of go outside and do things with the family.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange times and tough from a business perspective, and just sports in general have kind of come to a halt. But for me, I had planned on, season was just about to kick off. We're doing rally, we're doing boats, with Nitro Rallycross, building the tracks and getting all that stuff sorted. So I was going to be gone for about 2.5 months, and Lindsay and the kids now with our kids starting kindergarten, or our oldest anyway. So kind of staying home more, but trying to come see on the weekends. And when this all hit, life as far as sports stopped. But I've been so fortunate and consider it a blessing to be able to spend this time with the kids and with the family. So definitely, yes, I'm very lucky to have this kind of, I mean, we live in the country. We've got access to motorcycles and Can-Ams and all kinds of fun stuff and trampolines. So not a lot changed, except for I actually get to spend time and be home with the family. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, I was just going to say, between yourself, who's done everything, and your wife, Lindsay Adams Hawkins Pastrana, who's skateboarding royalty, your two daughters, Addie and Bristol, like they just must be having both of you home at the same time for this extended period. It's like they probably get to skate, they get the dirt bike, they get the go-kart. I mean, it must be heaven for the girls.
It's good and bad, definitely. As far as teachers, Lindsay's an amazing mom and an amazing teacher, but it's our oldest, who's in kindergarten. They butt heads every day with school. So it's I've gotten the very good end of that deal, where I kind of do the PE. So and sometimes math, we'll have math and writing. We'll do make notes on the Can-Ams. We'll go around like, okay, that's a 6 minus. It tightens, and just have them kind of write out all the notes and make their own notes. So selfishly, it's been really interesting and really good for me to kind of expose our kids to a little bit more of what rally is. And they're all driving everything now. So definitely a little scary, but also pretty cool to have this time. And Lindsay, she's been skating quite a bit now that it's the first little bit, it was a bit cold here in Maryland, but now she's just really finding her groove. And it's cool to be home, to be a family. We can play good cop, bad cop, and really get on a routine.
Yeah. That's we call that country math, what you're teaching the girls out there in the woods. That's country math. Hey, want to get into a bunch of things with you, but also I want to kick off a brand new game that we're doing here on Brando's World of X Games. And I thought, who better to initiate this thing than Travis Pastrana?
Should I be nervous?
If you're down, you just got to give me yes or no before I tell you what it is. But it's the hot box. 60 seconds. How many questions can you answer? We'll keep a tally. 60 seconds in the hot box.
I'm always in for a challenge. Just make it happen.
All right. Starting the clock right now, just so you can see. 1 minute. Here we go. Ready, set, go. Cargo shorts or jean shorts?
Jean shorts. Shorts.
Fries or tater tots?
Fries.
Favorite fast food?
Probably Chick-fil-A.
Favorite video game?
I have an Iron Man short, Super Off-Road.
First CD you ever bought?
Disturbed.
Nice.
Down with the sickness.
Favorite Will Ferrell movie?
Talladega Nights.
Jean-Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal?
Steven Seagal, Under Siege.
Sexier to go fast on 4 wheels or 2?
Both.
Favorite cereal?
Honey Nut Cheerios.
Jordan or LeBron?
Oh, I mean, you gotta go Jordan, right? I mean, gotta go Jordan.
Last one is Kevin Windham, the peak of male fitness.
Dude, dad bod all the way over there.
And time. Damn, that was good. I'm gonna have my producer Sean and Sean. We're going to get the tally in a little bit and find out what how you did there. But
I feel
congratulations.
like the questions were coming too slow. I mean, if they're gonna have a
Oh,
timed race, I'm blaming that on you.
okay. Well, I thought you did well. I don't know. I'm not blaming you. So we got to fine tune
It's
things.
all,
Like I
it's all
said, it's
about
the
winning.
first. That's the first hot box, okay? And I thought with you we had to customize a few things too to bring to the table. But
That
you're out
last
of the hot
question was
box,
good.
man. Congratulations. Hey, want to get into a lot of things, but first and foremost, it's going to be airing on World of X Games in just a few weeks. Your race to rebuild Puerto Rico. It takes place obviously at the Motocross of the Nations a couple of years ago, excuse me. But would love to just hear that overall experience of representing Puerto Rico in a race like that.
Motocross of Nations, for those of you guys that don't know, it's the Olympics of motocross. It's the thing that as a kid I wanted to do the most. Looking up to guys like David Bailey and Rick Johnson, the Osho, Johnny O'Mara, Bob Hurricane Hanna. These guys, they got a chance. They're battling each other all year, and then they go over wherever the Motocross of Nations was to represent your country. And America was on a big streak. I got to represent the U.S. when I was 16 years old. We were on a winning team with Ryan Hughes and Ricky Carmichael. And then there's been quite a few losses, since for the U.S. team. But this year was completely different because the team Puerto Rico, after Hurricane Maria, they weren't going to have a team. So actually came through a guy, Ronnie Mack, called up and said, look, we have an opportunity to really do something positive, and we had this kind of whole story planned out. I'm like, man, we can't go to the biggest race on earth because the only thing that we have to do is have a passport from that country. So U.S. can represent Puerto Rico, which is a territory of the United States. And I'm like, man, I think we could do well. We could raise money. We could draw attention to how badass and how tough motocross is. But it really wasn't accepted that well that Ronnie Mack was on the team. So he stood down and said, look, I just think we have a great opportunity to do some good for the moto community. And we called Kevin Windham and got him off the couch. He had 3 months to get ready to go against the most fit guys on the face of the earth. But he's like, all right, so what are we doing? So look, Puerto Rico didn't have a team. They were devastated by the hurricane. We have a chance to go down and kind of get the fun going. They haven't had any motocross tracks open. Like, let's raise some money. And if we don't raise money, we spend some of our own money to go down there, rebuild a couple tracks.
Right.
And the community came together so much more than we ever could have imagined. Besides the race where they cheered us around the whole way, people from all over the world, every country they were excited to see Brian Sipes. They were excited to see Kevin Windham. Guys that obviously we were in no condition or contention to win, but we ended up qualifying for the Motocross of Nations, the top 20 teams, which was, a shock. It was a miracle. But we raised a few $100,000. We went down there, had 30 volunteers. All the guys, even Nate Wessel, who built X Games courses
Yep.
for BMX and skateboard, all the skate parks for Woodward. He came down. He was putting roofs on houses, and we got electricity to some houses, and we held a race just for the local community. And it was the first race that they had in over a year. And man, I tell you, it was just such a good feeling to go down there. And even guys like Greg Schnell, former motocross guys, heard about it and said, shoot, I'm going to go. I'm taking off work on my own dime. I'm flying down, and he's construction now. Most of our families and most of motocrossers, if we went construction.
Right.
So there was a lot of construction workers down there who you wouldn't expect. Trevor Piranha, and the guys, they worked their butts off, and we were down there for a week and put a little fun back into the community. We didn't change the world, but I think we changed the world for a few people.
No, you absolutely did. And it's an amazing story, certainly. And I look forward to that airing on World of X Games. But I just think Hurricane Maria was a humanitarian crisis that most of us will never really see in our lifetimes. And sometimes it's always, oh my gosh, that's so devastating. And then we're on to the next thing. And here we are, almost 3 years later, and there are people in Puerto Rico that are still needing food, still out of power. I mean, it's such a devastation that hit them. So to bring a little positivity and a little light and make a difference, man, we really applaud you for that.
No, it was just an awesome opportunity for us to use kind of this platform that we have in sport to really bring the community together. And I wouldn't have known so much how bad it was or how bad it still is. But our good friend Tara Geiger is from Puerto Rico, and her family. She's like, look, hurricanes have come through. They've hit the south end or they've hit the north end, but this is the first one. They got hit with a 1-2 punch, 2 hurricanes in a row, and the second one just, I mean, all the ports, they couldn't get any supplies. So, being a territory of the U.S., you'd think they would have got more help, but however it worked, and it's just there's a lot of people still suffering. So hopefully, if you guys, it was the first documentary that my girls both sat down and both watched the whole thing. So it's, especially when Kevin Windham and just the positivity of sight, man, it's a good story. So if you have a chance, definitely check it out.
Yeah, and not only that, like you said, obviously you're documenting your guys' journey, and as improbable as it may be, but it has a little bit of everything. And all I can say is, truly, as somebody who just watched it and really enjoyed it, is I need more Kevin Windham in my life. That he steals every scene that he's in. It's incredible.
He, without a doubt, he is a true American hero, if you will. And he was so out of shape, but he's like, he was 200, so he's 220 some pounds. He was almost 230 when we called him, and he's like, and he owns a bunch of gyms. So of all things, I'm like, Kevin, you should actually go to these gyms. I mean, you're spending all this time making them work. But he's like, look, for you guys, I know that this project needs someone. And he goes, I'll be that man. And so, Kevin, thank you.
Yeah. Great head of hair. And that beard is just, it complements everything so well. Aesthetically pleasing to the eye.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, Travis, you've just, as we said before, you've just tried your hand at nearly everything. I even heard a rumor. Obviously, we'll get into the freestyle and the racing motocross and the boats and NASCAR and rally. I'm sure I'm missing a few things. But is it true that you considered possibly getting into BMX big air once upon a time?
A little bit. I thought I've always grown up BMX. I mean, BMX was what we did. And to learn tricks in freestyle, like you usually start on a BMX bike or a mountain bike, and then you take it, trampoline, bicycle, pit bike, big bike. That was kind of our, especially before foam pits, we needed to kind of work our way up. And no one had done a double backflip over the mega ramp. So I was like, man, I'm not going to win, but I bet I could double backflip that on a BMX bike. This was before, obviously, the 2006 or anything. And
sure,
I was like, I could probably go back and flare. I'm like, I bet I could get 10 foot out of that and do a flare. Like nothing huge, but as it turns out, getting above coping for me was like death. And no, I always had a lot of respect for those guys, but I was like, man, with guys like Chad Kegui, like as a good friend, I'm like, they're going to teach me how to do this. No problem.
Right.
No, so a lot of respect for like R. Willie and those guys that went down there, and they're so technical on scooters and that kind of stuff. But for him to go and learn that quarter, dude, my wife, she boosts, 15 foot out of the top of that thing. Not a chance. You couldn't pay. There's not enough money on earth that you could pay me to drop in on that ramp on a skateboard.
Wow. That's wild to think that you've jumped out of an airplane without a parachute on, and you will not go down big air on a skateboard. That's crazy.
No, not happening. I know my limits.
Yeah. I don't know why this just popped into my head, and this is a question I've always wanted answered, and I don't know how many people I've talked to that have done this before. But if I remember, you and Lindsay were in one year the ESPN the magazine body issue, right?
Yeah.
I've always wondered. It's a great shot. I remember you're on your bike, right? She's kind of holding you. So for those who don't know, ESPN the magazine every year used to put out a body issue where they'd get athletes from all different sports naked. You're covering your junk, but like, what's that like? Like, are you fully naked with like a photographer and makeup and lighting? Like, what was that experience like?
No, well, there's no makeup, but yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be like, that's the interesting. Yeah, like, let's get something clear here. No, but so the funny part is Alyssa Ronick, good friends with Nitro Circus. She was like, hey, we're just going through getting a list of people that might be interested. And she had talked to Lindsay and I, and I'm like, absolutely not. Lindsay's like, well, that'd be an awesome family shot, like awkward family photo. Like, who doesn't want to do that? And this was after she had, like, a year after we had Addie, our first kid. So she was like, I just want to show women that, be proud of your body and let's go have some fun. So it was an interesting thing because when everyone shows up, they get this whole production team, and then like, okay, everyone turn around, robes off. I should probably be more bashful, but I mean, I just naked all day. I'm like, I'm naked with my wife. This is riding dirt bikes. This is the best day of my life. So yeah, I mean, it was an interesting experience, but definitely we're not too shy. I mean, not overly not shy, but like
reason, right?
Yeah, let's clarify that a little bit. But no, it was just a fun day to ride dirt bikes naked.
Yeah,
I have no idea why. But she said she wanted to do it. I said, all right, we'll do this.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. No, I wasn't, and that wasn't something that I was like, I can't wait to ask him. I don't know why that just like popped into my brain. I'm like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to know about the body issue. And
it is interesting though. Every time we do an autograph signing together with Lindsay and I, almost like every creepy old guy that comes up always has the body issue
with
picture of my wife. Here you go. I'm like, all right, well, I guess we put ourselves out for that.
Okay. Well, I want to obviously work backwards to, when you first sort of hit the radar of everyone. I want to get there eventually. But right now, I want to know, as you said, obviously you got Nitro Circus and you're racing. So what, post-pandemic, when we all do get out there and get on courses, get on tracks, get in front of fans, what does Travis Pastrana have lined up for the rest of 2020?
It's a scheduling nightmare, to be perfectly honest. But no, I mean, with Nitro and stuff, it's a touring company, so obviously you need people in the stands. But it's also a media house. So luckily, we've been able to get a lot of projects that were kind of put on the back burner, like this Race to Rebuild. The whole documentary, and really brought to light some stuff that I was hoping to get out there for a long time. So it's been good on that. We also did some with the boot campaign about 2 years ago. We took a lot of us that had head injuries, and we got a chance to, we paid for our own way, but through the boot campaign, which is basically to help veterans, recover, especially after they come back from the war, and, concussions and CTE, and learn a lot about that stuff. But we filmed everything, and we're able to kind of put a little documentary on that and shed a little light on just what Nitro is doing, for head injuries and prevention of anything worse happening in the future. I mean, people are going to do what they do, but to know how to best cope with that, and to kind of shed a little light on some of the mood swings and all the stuff that comes with that was kind of cool. But right now, my biggest focus is building a Nitro rallycross course. Rallycross, I believe, can be more exciting. I believe it can be fun, and for the drivers, for everything. And I think it could be awesome, but it's failed twice for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of drivers in the U.S., especially, that believe we kind of have the answers for that, going electric and stuff. There's been a lot of stuff going on. But with Nitro Rallycross, that's now was scheduled for the same weekend that now a WRX, which is World Rallycross.
Right.
So that's troublesome. Plus, I have Rally, ARA, the championship for U.S. Rally, as well as an offshore powerboat race, all scheduled for the same weekend that we had Nitro Rallycross scheduled for. So I don't know how I'm going to be 3 places at once, but we're working on it.
Do you ever, I'm just thinking, because you've just forayed into so many different things, and it's hard to look back at, being 15 and say, well, I expect to race, and then I expect to get into freestyle and maybe NASCAR and maybe World Rallycross. Did you have at an early age the idea that you wanted to pursue so many different avenues, or did they just kind of present themselves along the way?
I think every career-ending injury, when you have someone that has kind of an outlook like I do, like my family does. My dad always said, look, your uncle was probably the greatest athlete that's ever come. My Uncle Alan, his brother, was, played quarterback with Denver Broncos, All-American lacrosse, wrestling. He didn't have a single point scored on him his high school senior year until the national championships. Like, he was a great athlete, and yet didn't really make it in the NFL. Ended up working at the community college, as they call him, Coach P, teaching football and lacrosse, and now teaches senior health. And worked in the summers for the family construction company. Just my dad's brothers. He had 5 brothers, so it was kind of a small, nothing too big, but definitely construction. So having known that, my dad's like, look, I want you to work as hard as you can. I'll give everything that we can, and your family will give everything that we can to help you get as far as you can. And at the end of the day, whatever you decide to do, you're going to be back here working construction with the family. So just live every day to the fullest. Anytime you have a chance to do what you love to do, ride that train till the wheels fall off. And with that theory, I didn't really think, okay, I'm going to be this or I'm going to do that. I just thought every day, get up with the passion, do the best that you possibly can, have a lot of fun. And, you know, when the wheels fall off, we'll go work construction with the family. And luckily I was able to, I mean, still, my dad still laughs. He was down yesterday. He's like, you're making a living still on kids' toys. And a lot thanks to X Games and thanks to, you know, now in the Olympics and everything. It's so cool that these sports that we grew up on, that you were considered, oh, don't do that stuff because, you know, there's no future in it. But the guys that were passionate about it found a way. And I think that passion is really what keeps these sports going. That's what's allowed me to keep living and doing what I love.
Yeah, you mentioned, you know, the naysayers, oh, there's no future in that. And I think there's probably no better example of that narrative than the late 90s, when freestyle motocross was really starting to, I don't even want to say come to the forefront, really just get onto the peripheral of fans. And you were a part of that crew in 1999 in San Francisco, and what a battle that was. But I'm just curious, at that age, to be a teenager and still trying to figure out what this is. You know, there are guys who had been maybe growing up on the Krusties, VHSs and things like that sort of was pursuing this. But you were kind of in the midst of really starting this racing career. So the idea of, I can do both, or I want to give this a shot, I assume that was met with some resistance from people in your circle.
More than you could ever imagine. And I thank my parents every day for allowing me to follow my passion. And that's kind of what my dad had always said from the beginning. And my mom, you know, I mean, at the 6th grade, she's like, hey, you can't turn pro at 16 unless you're graduated high school. So we went homeschooling, and she goes, you have to stay on the honor roll. You work 7 days a week, 12 months a year. You take 1 week off for the national championships at Loretta Lynn's. And if you really want to be a professional motocross racer, she goes, this is what you're going to do. And if we ever have to tell you to do your schoolwork, then you're not, you know, you're going back to public school. Like, that's just how it's going to be. So it kept me motivated, kept me focused. And it's been a really kind of wild ride, if you will.
Yeah. Fast forward to just some different moments. You've had so many firsts, certainly, whether it's riding a dirt bike or doing things that we didn't think were possible on any sort of vehicle. But I just look back, as X Games now is celebrating 25 years of X Games, and your name is in the Hall of Fame, really, when it comes to moments at X Games. And I want to ask your favorite in a minute, but just when I look at the different things that you've done or tried to do or usher in, is there one that maybe seemed most impossible to you, whether it was thinking about that first backflip or the 360 and then eventually the double backflip? Of all the things that you've done at different times, was there one that felt tougher to achieve than the rest?
Not necessarily. Whatever you're doing at the moment is the hardest thing you've ever done.
Right.
And then you realize that most tricks, I mean, we were starting, we're doing, you know, no foot of cans, thinking it was the hardest thing ever. And then Carrie Hart started doing a Superman seat grab and then a heart attack. We're like, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden we got backflips. And that's really what separated. That's when freestyle went from, yeah, it's a bunch of guys that couldn't make it at racing, to, no, this is a real sport. And you're putting your life on the line if you want to be competitive. Guys like Drake McElroy and Dustin Miller that were on top of their game when the flip came around, you know, Mad Mike Jones, it separated. Even Brian Deegan, like, that was the moment when he's like, all right. I mean, it took him a year. Kenny Bartram hated flips. Kenny didn't even flip on a trampoline. And so it took him a year of flipping before he even saw the landing. He just did it on a lot of crashing. And, you know, but that's what it took for these guys. I was lucky. I grew up a little bit more with the gymnastics background, but still, I never thought we were going to be flipping and spinning dirt bikes. You know, so I think the double backflip took the most time. And then, you know, we're still working on tricks, and tricks are taking longer now. You know, especially the ramps. It went from, you know, guys like, you know, Dane Herron building these huge dirt jumps. I mean, if you look at 2002 or 2002, 2003, we were at the Coliseum. Kenny Bartram came to me and we're all scared to death. Like the jumps were huge. And forget doing the tricks. We're just talking about getting around the course. And no one wanted to go first. And we're almost out of practice and no one even dropped in yet. I think it ended up being like Twitch was like, all right, here we go. Someone's got to do it. And it was kind of wild because it went like that was just such an exciting time and people were still learning tricks and the ramps were always different. And then it became kind of standardized, which made the practice and then foam pits and airbags and it made it safer, but also more difficult because there was nothing that you could do that was super out of the box creative. So that's what Nitro Circus and kind of like the big era of action sports. Like we wanted to make jumps that evolve every year, where X Games kind of turned in the Olympics of action sports. Where hey, look, we're going to make this fair across the board for everybody. Everyone's going to know what ramps they're getting. They're going to know exactly what they can practice on, and it kind of turned your guys that were willing to put in the work started to overcome the guys that were just super talented. So the sport almost took kind of two directions there. Now it's coming back full circle where everyone's starting to realize that, hey, let's work together and let's just see how big we can continue to grow these sports.
Yeah, it begs an interesting question, and one that we've asked other fellow freestyle riders, and that is, it's always been about progression and what's next. And I think for a lot of freestyle contests, you've started to see things that we've seen before, and can you just do it a little bit better? And you wonder, where's the innovation? And obviously best trick contests are great. We continue to see things that are outside of the box. But, from your vantage point, do you feel like freestyle motocross is still kind of tip of the iceberg of what's possible? Or do we really have to kind of buckle down and try to figure out how, best to innovate here as we move forward?
It really took a kind of a side turn. You got guys like, Axel Hodges and that whole kind of Southern California crew that's just going out. Twitch kind of started it and brought in, kind of that next generation of guys. And that's where the quarter pipe really stemmed from. And hey, let's see how high we can go. Kind of back to the Tomcat days of let's go out and let's backflip, sand dunes or whatever. Let's take it to, a little bit more to what you're jumping and that kind of being the difficult level. But the tricks got so gnarly for a little bit on the platforms that you're working with. And it wasn't until Josh Sheehan really worked on that triple backflip that we were able to start. We said, what do we need? Okay, we need ramp design. We went through 30 or 40 different renditions, started at a 14-foot tall ramp and ended up with a 40-foot tall takeoff ramp. Realizing also at the same time with Jed Milden and James Foster, what a bicycle needed, and they ended up with a 23-foot tall takeoff ramp. But theirs had to be decreasing radius because the bicycle loses speed on the way up, whereas the moto ramp had to be kind of have the main part of the radius, or the tightest part of the radius, in the center, and then go flat at the top, so the front end was able to kind of spring off of it. So we just learned a lot about ramps, and it was kind of a fun time. But more importantly, we learned a lot about the safety on landings, working with airbags, working with a company called Bag Jump, and kind of the landing ramps, and trying to get that technology so where you could put a bag on a hill. And since then, a lot of the Olympic for snowboarding and everything have been calling Nitro Circus and Bag Jump, say, okay, you've got this, how can we do this? And with safety, we've been able to progress. So progression through safety is kind of where we're going. We get a lot of flack, like, wow, well, why are you having a bag jump? I'm like, well, because Josh Sheehan is 110 feet in the air, and if he were to crash once, he's going to be dead. So like we have to, and he eventually did a triple backflip, about 105 foot off ground level, 65 foot tall takeoff, 40 foot tall takeoff, 65 foot tall landing. He went almost, probably just over 100 feet in the air off ground level, did a triple backflip with a 250-pound dirt bike, and landed on a wood landing. He only went 20 feet in distance. So, I mean, just about vertical, just the G-force is unbelievable. If you have a chance, check it out. But
yeah,
it was one of those things that once that bag was made for him to land on, progression started to happen so fast again, because now all of a sudden it wasn't just like a flat bag. You're landing, you could really take that. And you've seen so many of these competitions all over Europe where they actually have the airbags for the competitions, the full bag. You can ride out of it. I mean, heck, even if you look at Beaver Fleming, he rode out of a double backflip on a skateboard off of a dirt bike ramp at my house. I landed it on the airbag. So they're getting to where they're stiff enough to withstand where like small wheels and everything, but hard enough that you can land a dirt bike and not pop it, and you can land on your head and it still sucks, but you're gonna ride away from it or live through it. So with that, we've made a lot of progress. Sorry for the long-winded explanation, but
No,
it's
dude, this is gold, man. We want more. You bring up Beaver Fleming. It's funny. I always think about Beaver and just how he's a fountain of positivity, and I kind of liken it to yourself. And I've always sort of privately thought to myself, like, who's harder to tick off more, Beaver Fleming or Travis Pastrana? Because I've never seen either of you guys without a smile on your face.
Well, we both realize we get to do what we love to do for a living, and we're very fortunate to wake up every day with that. And Beaver works really hard. He's definitely one of those underrated skaters. I was lucky. Motocross isn't really about being cool or anything. Thank goodness. It's just about, especially because I came from a racing background where if you get across the finish line first, you win. And then, when I started doing the freestyle motocross and came to X Games, I was still wanted to be a racer. I was just doing that for fun. And, Brian Deegan, Metal Militia, they were so awesome to me. They really took me under their wing. And it was kind of an interesting kind of juxtaposition on, you got some guys that, they like to drink, they have tattoos, they're partying, they still train hard, they still work hard. But, just the anti-establishment. And then you got the other guys, the Nate Adams and the motocross kind of side coming in. But everyone gets along. And like on tour, it says, oh, how do you guys live on tour with for 2 months at a time? You have any, there's never any arguments because everyone, not never, but like you would not believe how positive the groups are. So that's what's been just a really cool thing. You can be whoever you want to be. And if you do what you love to do and you're passionate about it, you're kind of accepted. Whereas skate, I'm not saying that's not the case, but they're protecting their livelihood, which is culture. And that's something that is, having married a skater so many times, she's just laughing. She said, you can't wear that, or you can't do that. Why not? It's fun. No, you are not putting our youngest daughter on snow skis. I'm like, why not? You aim them straight like pizza, French fry. It's simple. No, we got to go snowboard. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know anything about being cool, but I know a lot about having fun.
No, that you do. Hey, you painted a picture of like that time at the beginning of freestyle, late 90s, early 2000s, Brian Deegan, Metal Militia. And it was sort of not scripted, but the idea was that, the light and the darkness, right? They were the bad boys of freestyle. And as you said, you kind of were this young up and comer. And it almost, it without you guys sort of saying it, it created at least from maybe a media perspective, like, oh, this is the rivalry, or maybe these guys don't like each other. But as you've said time and time again, that really wasn't the case. But it actually helped sort of cultivate something within the sport as well, because it created a sort of fandom, right? That maybe from a marketing standpoint, might not have happened organically, but it happened quicker because it was like, oh, I'm a Deegan guy, or I'm a Travis Pastrana guy.
You were generally on one side or the other. For sure. And it was good versus evil. It's, not good versus evil, but like you got this straight A dorky kid and you got the leader of the Metal Militia. But he's smart. And I had no idea what was going on, but Brian did. And I'm not saying he orchestrated the whole thing. Like he was definitely living that lifestyle. And that was, but he understood that there was a need for everyone to be cookie cutter, that there was a need for him and for Metal Militia to come out there and not necessarily the rebels or the crazies or the partiers, but he's like, man, I ride motorcycles because I love to ride. And I was doing the same thing, but how we went about it could not have been further from the same.
So what was your immediate thought when you showed up to X Games and he came out with the chest protector and the shoulder pads with the spikes coming out? I mean, were you like, oh my God, that's sick? Or were there like, what am I getting myself into?
No, I guess I didn't really think too much of it. Like I just was there riding. It was funny though, because Brian was always super nice to my parents. always went out of his way to say, hello, Miss Pastrana, how was your day? It's so good to see Travis here. Like, so even though he was, I'm not saying it wasn't true to who Brian was, but, he knew that he had to go out there and there had to be a rivalry. And he took advantage right away, starting his own company. He's like, if you don't have your own logos or something on your, he was a businessman. Yeah. And he found a way to make that work. And I thank him every day for helping build freestyle motocross, for helping. I mean, I don't always agree with how he went about it, but that was the greatest thing to have happened to really set me up to make a living for the rest of my life in sport, because people really did pick a side, love it or hate it. Yeah, it was cool. It was something to root for.
Oh, real quick. I've always wondered this, especially on the racing side. How much do you have to practice the thank you sponsor speech? Like when they're asking you in the pit interview or the sideline interview, and inevitably nobody asks you, but you say, I want to thank, and then you have like 15 sponsors that you have to thank. Did you get good at that right away, or did you have to practice that?
So my parents used to, when I was little, so I won my first national championship at 10, and my hat, they would put on the inside of my hat all my sponsors.
No way.
So they'd give me the hat on the podium, and then they're like, hey, anyone like to thank? And it was so bad. I would like to thank Suzuki. Just all the way down the list. So, which was kind of funny, but that's what's interesting about that now is, like in NASCAR, or you look at any sport, you're not going to make it there without sponsorship. You have to be smart about how you present it. You have to do the best you can. I mean, in NASCAR, for instance, to be on a top team in Cup, it's $14 million a year before you make a dime. So that's how much it costs to run a top tier car. So you really, you think of your racer, but you're a salesman. You have to sell $14 million worth of product for somebody to justify you even being on the track. So it's really difficult to be you. I've been fortunate enough where my sponsors have been people that I can be me, and still kind of get the job done to hopefully sell the product, or at least make them think I'm selling the product. I don't know, but it's working pretty good to this point.
I wish I owned a company of any sort, because I would try to figure out how to hire Travis Pastrana. I feel like I get my money's worth there. Travis, you've been so generous with your time. We really appreciate it. Before I let you go, though, I do want to ask, as we said
another
before,
hot box.
we've got some more for you if you're down. No, I want to ask. It's as we said before, 25 years of X Games, so many great moments, and your name's right up there alongside all of them. Looking back at 25 years of X, is there one moment for you that kind of stands above the rest, whether it's your own or something that you bore witness to that you look back on and you go, that's X Games to me?
For me, the whole story behind this kind of is, and the interesting part and why this is kind of what X Games is for me, is because the Condor, Matt Hoffman, he didn't win, but he did a trick that he came out of retirement specifically to do. He blew out his knee 3 weeks before X Games. Couldn't stand up, couldn't walk, couldn't put any pressure on it. Couldn't get anyone in the US to do the surgery. Found a doctor in Canada to basically put his knee back together, stabilize it enough that it was going to work, but they couldn't do it for what they needed to put in his knee. It hadn't been approved yet. So they couldn't actually put him under, or be called a surgery. So they're like, yeah, we can numb everything, but when we drill through your bones, we can't numb the bone. So he was awake through an entire surgery of them drilling and putting his knee back together with no practice, goes out and lands a no-handed 900 in his run just because he wanted to do it. So all that pain, all that everything shows up. This is a guy that he lives and breathes action sport. First one to do so many things before anyone was making any money at all. Not like literally working 2 other jobs to pay for himself to go ride. Kind of the guy that put BMX vert on the map, and then comes out of retirement because he wants to be the first to do something. And if you don't do it at X first, it doesn't really count. And it was just so rad to see what someone was willing to go through for just pride.
Yeah, Matt comes up quite a bit when we ask this question of various athletes for his contributions. And what we love about Matt Hoffman is, on top of being one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time on the BMX, is that he still to this day, it is such a passion of his, and he's so involved. And you see him out on the ramp with brooms or shovels out on the dirt jumps, and it's just like he cares so much. And you think, why Matt Hoffman doesn't need to be doing this? Yes, he does, because that's how much he cares about BMX.
Yeah, I was actually called him just over the winter a few months ago, and I was like, "How's it going?" He's like, "Oh, it's not good." I'm like, "What happened?" It's like, "Man, it's been cold and rainy. I haven't been able to ride in a week and a half." I'm like, all right, man, that's good. That's but he loves it that much. Like that, it changes his vibe. And you follow on Instagram, he's riding every single day. So cool.
Yep. Matt Hoffman, man, he's one of a kind. As are you. And again, well, a very popular favorite moment for anybody when you look at the history of X Games is, of course, your double backflip at Staples Center. The trick heard round the world. We knew that you were going to try it. And we wondered, could you do it? What's going to happen here? Nobody knew. And it was history making for anybody who was there. And I'm just curious. I know you've talked about it a lot over the years, but just that feeling right before you dropped in for that double backflip.
So
what did it feel like?
Let me take you back to that day a little bit. So you had Kevin Robinson and Chad Kegui, good friends, working on a double flare for the first time ever. So when you're in the athlete lounge and there's people trying, the X Games is always a place you did something that's never been done, and you waited all to kind of drop it there. So you get two of the top guys rooting for each other on the ramp that's going to take place right after the moto best trick. And they're like, dude, you better set the vibe. Like, if you get hurt doing this, like, you're going to kill both of us, because we're going for this and we need the energy in that stadium to be on. And you see Kevin Robinson and Chad Kegui holding hands, two of the toughest guys in the world, about to do something so gnarly. And just, I mean, you had like Sheckler and everybody, like everyone from all the different sports was coming for that night. There was so much that was never been done before. That's all going to happen between, I mean, all in the Staples Center, but between the, what I'm doing and all the other guys are doing in freestyle, and then, for the vert for BMX. And then for me, I got my whole rally crew watching. So at that year, the X Games did rally, not just rally cross, but we did, 60, 70 miles of racing on these gnarly roads. My all-time hero, Colin McRae, was 1/10 of a second ahead of me coming into the final super special stage. My whole career that I want to go, like, look, I love freestyle motocross. I love dirt bikes. I've had a lot of injuries. I want to go racing cars. And Subaru's looking at me. They're going, look, you don't need to do this double backflip. And right before I went up to the ramp, I'm sitting in third place. I have a medal already here. I've got freestyle motocross, my best sport, coming up. And I had a chance to win rally that year against one of the greatest rally drivers of all time. I've got so much more to lose here than to gain. And my mom, the reporters kept coming up. Your son could die tonight. How's that make you feel? Don't you want to stop him? Like, how would you feel as a parent if you let him die? So my mom's bawling. She's got like half the athletes and all the moms and girlfriends are all crying in the athlete lounge. And, all this stuff's about to go down later. And the tension is up there. And I rock, paper, scissors with Hubert. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm like, I have worked the last 3 years of my life. And if I don't do it right now, I'm probably never going to do it in competition. Like, I can do this. I know I can. So let's just make it happen. And I found that night that my really good friends weren't trying to talk me out of it. They said, look, you want to do it? Do it. You know what the consequences are. That's your job. You make a living analyzing risk. Do we think it's stupid? Yes. Should you do it? Absolutely not. But if you want to do it, that's why you're here. And this is X Games. So there was a lot of emotion that night, and never had so many people trying to talk me out of something as that night. And that I think that helped me, because about to drop in, you're like, no, I don't do this for the money. I don't do this for a career. I mean, I'm doing it as a career, but I do this because I want to wake up every day and do the best that I can. And I know that this has a chance of working. And if I don't try it, I can't live with myself.
Wow. To
Sorry,
hear the backstory. No, that's so great. And I kind of forgot about that with Rally going on, and, you know, you're sort of the duality of you that weekend and doing motocross and Rally, all that going through your head. That's just amazing. And I do remember that camera. We had just the permanent mom camera on your mom throughout that night. Guys. And it was before my time, but I do remember being, gosh, 19, 20 at the time. And I think somehow, some way, I was able to get a press pass. I lied my way to actually get on the floor. And I still remember standing on the floor for that, and my jaw dropping. And I think, if my memory serves me right, Staples Center has like their top 10 moments of things that has happened at Staples Center. You're talking, you know, Lakers championship, and you're number 2. I mean, that's insane when you think about all the history that's been had cross sport there at Staples Center.
No, definitely a proud moment. For an athlete, there's so many days that you will put everything on the line, that it means so much to you, whether there's two of your friends watching or, you know, 100,000 people watching. But that was a moment that my grandma remembers. That's a moment that I have so many people still to this day. They come up there, oh, I was in Iraq, or I was here, or I was there. Like, people still remember where they were during that. And thanks to ESPN, I had a chance to. It's one of the only times in my life, or in most people's lives, I guess, where a moment that means so much to you is translated to where that everyone around the globe can watch live, and that feeling comes across. So it was as much as I didn't appreciate, my mom was crying the whole day. You guys did a great job of relaying the truth of what could possibly happen.
They're historians. It was for history's sake. They knew that 15 plus years from now, you would appreciate it. No. And honestly, when it comes to, you know, the look back moments of X Games, I think it's neck and neck with, you know, Tony's 900 and your double backflip. Those always seem to be the two moments that resonate with athletes and with fans alike.
And not to take up more time, but what I thought was the coolest about Tony Hawk's 900 is that it's after time, when almost every other sport, because you got to think, like, you knock your best friend down in the last turn over the berm to take him out, wouldn't even think twice to win a race. But action sports was so unique, and is so unique, because you're not directly competing against someone else. You're kind of competing against the possibility of the human spirit. And to have, not to get too deep on this, but everyone was cheering him on, even though it was after time. Every single one of Tony's competitors was saying, let him go again, let him go again. And they're all, you know, they're helping him back to the top of the ramp. They're all the energy. Everyone's positive. Everyone wants to see it. And even though it was after time, even though it shouldn't have counted, you know what I mean, as far as like a competition perspective, every single person was there supporting him to do something that until that moment was considered impossible. So breaking those limits of possibility is what X Games, in my opinion, is all about. And it just showed that camaraderie that you just don't get in a lot of sports.
We can't thank you enough. I don't know that we can truly, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or you know, blow hot air towards you, but I look at X Games over 25 years, and I look what you brought to the table. And honestly, Travis, I don't believe X Games probably gets to where it is now without your contributions and what you've done over the years. And we just can't thank you enough.
I mean, dude, there are so many guys. Like, I'm so honored to be a part of that group and to be a part of kind of the evolution, at least for the freestyle motocross portion for sure. But it's been a fun ride, and thank you guys for allowing me to make a living on kids' toys, to travel around with all my best friends, and to now get to experience this kind of life with my kids. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, we can't thank you enough, Travis. Give your best to Lindsay. I guess at this time, she and I would be together calling some skateboarding contests, so I'm bummed we can't do that. Hopefully sooner than later, but all the best to you and the fam. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it, man.